All right, today we're going on an incredible journey. We're going to travel through thousands of years of history, but not by reading dusty old books. Nope. We're going to read the story that's written in stone, brick, and steel. We're going to see how the buildings we make tell us everything about who we were and who we've become. I mean, really think about that for a second. What would they say? Because honestly, they kind of do talk. Every single pillar, every arch, every window has a story to tell about the people who built it, what they believed in, what they dreamed of, and what problems they were trying to solve. And today, we're going to learn their language. So here's our roadmap. We're kicking things off in ancient Egypt, then hopping over to the hills of Greece. After that, we'll explore the incredible cathedrals of the Middle Ages, and we'll wrap things up in the ridiculously dramatic palaces of the Baroque period. Each stop is a whole new chapter in the story of us. Okay, so let's dive in. Our story starts in the ancient world, where the very first architects were wrestling with a huge problem, a really monumental question. How in the world do you build something that lasts forever? And their first and most fundamental answer was the post and lintel system. It's as simple as it sounds. You take two vertical posts and you lay a horizontal beam, the lintel, across the top. It's super strong, it's really stable, it works. It's the absolute bedrock of ancient building. But it had one major weakness. Stone beams can only be so long before they crack under their own weight. And what's so fascinating is how two different cultures used that exact same building block for completely different reasons. For the ancient Egyptians, it was all about building for the afterlife. Their goal was immortality, so they created these massive, heavy structures like the pyramids, designed to stand for all time. But the Greeks, they had a different goal in mind. It wasn't just about lasting forever, it was about achieving perfection, a kind of visual mathematical harmony that was beautiful to the human eye. Which brings us to a really cool puzzle. If you look at a Greek temple like the Parthenon, your brain tells you that all its lines are perfectly straight and level. But here's the crazy part. They aren't, not at all. So how did they pull off this incredible illusion of perfection? Well, they used a genius little optical trick called entasis. See, the Greeks realized that our own eyes can fool us. A long, perfectly straight column actually looks like it's thinner in the middle from a distance. So to counteract that, they intentionally built their columns with a very slight bulge in the center. It's almost impossible to see, but it's just enough to trick our brains into seeing a perfectly straight line. I mean, how brilliant is that? So, building on what the Greeks started, the Romans roll onto the scene. And the Romans were first and foremost master engineers. They looked at the post and lintel system and thought, yeah, that's cute, but we've got an empire to build. We need to go bigger, wider, and faster. And they did it by perfecting one revolutionary shape. And this just shows their genius perfectly. It all starts with the arch. See, unlike a flat lintel that pushes all its weight straight down, an arch cleverly redirects that weight outwards and down its sides. That little change meant they could build way wider openings. Then they thought, hey, what if we just extend an arch like a tunnel? Boom, you get the vault. And then, the final masterstroke. What if we spin that arch in a circle? And just like that, you have the dome, a way to cover a massive open space with no columns in the middle. And if you're wondering just how good their engineering was, get this. The dome of the Pantheon in Rome, built with their own special recipe for concrete, is still the largest unreinforced concrete dome on the entire planet. And it's been standing for nearly 2,000 years. That's just mind-blowing. So after the Roman Empire falls, Europe moves into the Middle Ages, and architecture takes a really dramatic turn. You can basically think of this whole period as a tale of two competing styles, one that was heavy and tied to the earth, and another that desperately tried to reach for the heavens. So first up was the Romanesque style, and the name kind of gives it away. It was Roman-like. These churches were built to feel like spiritual strongholds, like fortresses for God. They used the rounded arches of the Romans, but they had these incredibly thick, heavy walls and really small windows. When you're inside one, you feel secure, grounded, and yeah, it's pretty dark. But then, a total revolution happened. Architects and church leaders wanted more height, and more importantly, more light. They wanted to build a representation of heaven on earth, and this desire gave birth to the Gothic style. And just look at the difference here. The heavy, rounded arch is stretched into a soaring, pointed arch. Those thick, fortress-like walls pretty much dissolve, becoming a thin stone skeleton. The whole feeling shifts from dark and heavy to light, airy, and just heavenly. So that's the big question, isn't it? How in the world did they do that? How do you hold up a roof that weighs literally tons when your walls are basically made of shimmering stained glass?
Here's the answer: the Flying Buttress. It's one of the most elegant and brilliant ideas in the history of architecture. It's basically a stone arm on the outside of the building that props the whole thing up. It catches all that immense weight from the roof, channels it away from the fragile walls, and carries it safely down to the ground. This one innovation freed the walls to become, well, not walls at all, but giant frames for breathtaking windows.
Okay, so as we leave the Middle Ages, we're jumping into another period of huge change. First, we get a rebirth of old ideas, and that's followed by a brand new obsession with drama and pure emotion. This is the Renaissance, which literally means rebirth. Architects and artists looked back and rediscovered the classical world of Greece and Rome, and they fell in love all over again. After the Gothic period's obsession with reaching for the heavens, the focus came right back down to earth. It was all about celebrating human potential, and architecture reflected that with a return to balance, harmony, and perfect proportions. But after all that calm, classical order came something else entirely: the Baroque. If Renaissance architecture is like a perfectly composed piece of classical music, then Baroque is pure opera. It's all about theater, emotion, and grandeur. Architects started using complex oval shapes, dramatic lighting, and swooping curves to create this incredible sense of movement and awe. This is architecture that's designed to stop you in your tracks. Eventually, that high-octane drama softened a little bit into what we call Rococo. You can think of it as Baroque's more graceful and maybe more playful cousin. The massive scale gets dialed back, and the focus shifts to creating stunningly elegant and ornate interiors, with lots of delicate shell-like curves. Wow, we have covered a ton of ground. So before we wrap this up, let's do a quick quiz to lock in a couple of these big ideas. First question: what do you call that clever optical trick the Greeks used to make their columns look perfect? That's the one. Intasis, the tiny little curve that makes all the difference. Okay, next one. What was that game-changing innovation that allowed Gothic cathedrals to have those huge, beautiful, stained glass windows? Exactly right. The flying buttresses, those elegant stone skeletons that let all the light pour in. And that's really the whole point. From the pyramids built for eternity to the palaces built for pure drama, every style solved a problem and told a story about its time. So the next time you walk down the street, just look up. The buildings all around you are talking. And now you can start to hear what they're saying.